Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. Today, as we kick off the next set of 5 episodes, it means that we are kicking off a new theme week here on the podcast. And this week, I want to dive into something that I feel as though I've constantly struggled with, and I want to share some tips and some ideas that have helped me that may be able to help you as well. So what is the topic for this week? All about how to build your intuition and or to connect to your higher power. And I say and or because whether you believe in a higher power or not, I think we all kind of have this gut check and these feelings that we get that we could call intuition. So whatever it is to you, whether it's higher power, intuition, or you call it something else, today and this week I want to talk about how we can connect and build those intuitive powers or that connection even better. So that said, let's dive right in. I want to talk today about just being still. If you know me on any level other than just this podcast, even if you do know me on the podcast level, you probably have guessed or you have seen, especially if you follow me on social media, that I have a lot of things going on. And I think we all do. I know for my own life, I feel like I'm constantly running from the next to the next to the next to the next. And while that is a life I have chosen and a life that I love, it also means that it's really hard for me to be still. To just sit in quiet and in the moment and not have my brain running 1,000 miles per minute. And in fact, when I do try to sit and be still, I have to have a notebook next to me because suddenly all those things that I didn't have on my to-do list start popping up and I'm like, oh, I gotta write that down so I don't forget. I need to write that down so I don't forget. And then I feel like I'm not sitting in stillness. Instead, I am writing down my to-do list, which is ever growing. And contributing to that, let's run around and be busy all the time. And again, I love my life. This is not me complaining about being busy. This is me saying, yes, I think we're all busy. Whether you have to run the kids to and from school, you have business meetings, work meetings, whatever it is, you need to meet a friend for lunch, you need to go on a date night with your spouse, whatever those components are that you may be in running your business, in running your household, in maintaining your relationships, we all have things that keep us running from one thing to the next, which can be a big blocker if we don't have time set aside to be still. Now, for me personally, I love to be still outside when I can actually do it because there's a lot of things that are going on that I can listen to, that I can focus on, that can help me center and align my mind. Now, some of you may be thinking, yeah, Taylor, this is meditation 101. But I think there's a slight difference because, and this might be me, but when I meditate, I have to have it guided. Otherwise, my brain goes a million miles a minute. And in this case, being still can just be 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long amount of time, but it's 2 minutes of me consciously paying attention to the sounds of birds twittering, the breeze, and really trying to tap in to that intuition, trying to tap into that positive voice in my mind and what it may be trying to tell me. Now again, whether that's intuition or higher power, that's your call. But I think that this Be Still exercise is really good at taking all these desperate pieces of our lives and bringing them together, aligning them, even if it's just for a small amount of time, putting them together so that you can feel more centered and build your intuition. So what does that actually look like? Of course, I can only go off of my own experiences on this, but for me, again, it's going and sitting outside in the sun and just being still. I set a timer for about 2 to 3 minutes, and I sit outside. And what's really interesting is if I take my dogs outside with me, they want to be in my face so bad. And I think it's because I'm slightly uncomfortable to just be sitting there. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's uncomfortable. We've got to go save her. And so they come and they knock my arm and try to get me to pet them and try to get me to pay attention to them. So for that 2 to 3 minutes, I don't. And in fact, I've started to leave them in the house so that when I'm done, I can let them out and we can play and do whatever we need to do. Now, cold weather, I have a spot in my office where I try to sit and be still every morning. Again, this is a work in progress. I'm not perfect. So I would love to know if you have any tips on how to be still and how to connect your intuition through a stillness exercise. With that said, for me, whether outside or inside, 2 to 3 minutes on my timer, and I sit there and I try to just listen. Just listen. Now for me, that is how I get access to my intuition. Is I often hear my own voice, or I often hear what I think I need to hear, or what I don't need to hear if it's a negative voice. And I have tons of podcasts all about like the differences between those two, so you can go check those out. But today, it's all about being still and just listening. Now you may learn differently. I tend to learn through auditory, so that makes sense for me. But maybe it's feeling, maybe it's writing, maybe it's a whole bunch of different ways for you. So find the way to be still that works for you. But for me, it is sitting in stillness and just trying to listen. Closing my eyes and listening and allowing what needs to be heard to be heard. Again, 3 minutes a day, nothing crazy. But this is how I've been able to build my intuition. So much so that it's gotten to a point where if someone is messaging me, let's say on Facebook, I can instantly get something that says, say this or don't say this, or this person is trying to scam you. And whether that's true or not, I'm not 100% sure. But because I've sat in stillness, I've learned to trust when those things come up. I've learned to trust to be able to say, you know what, I think this person needs XYZ, and to be able to share that with them. Or to trust and say, this person's asking me about my business, but they're not asking me about my business. That makes sense. And so there's some weird little things where it kind of cues me in on, this person's trying to scam me or trying to sell me, and I'm not about that. And I can read into that pretty quickly, purely because I spend a few minutes every day trying to be still and listening to myself. Now, that said, when you are listening to yourself, you might get a ton of voices coming in saying, what are you doing? Being very sarcastic, being aggressive, and telling you you're not worth it. And if you don't hear anything that might be telling you, which is ironic, because you would be hearing this, but telling you that you're obviously doing it wrong, or you're not good enough, or Taylor has some great, awesome power that you don't have. If that happens, do not accept that as truth, and instead, take a look at that and listen to the tone of the voice. Chances are it's shrill, it's, for lack of a better word, taut, like it's just very short and abrupt, and can be aggressive and sarcastic. If that's the voice that you are hearing, that is not your intuition or your higher power, that is your ego coming in, and that is something that when you hear those things, you can use declarations and take that moment to be still to really build yourself up instead of building yourself or breaking yourself down through those voices and that negative self-talk. So if you're interested in declarations, I do teach a class on these. I think that they're the most powerful and one of the most impactful things that I teach. Teach 3 different kinds: creative, combat, and coping. And in the instance of the Be Still exercise, if you are hearing negative things, combat declarations are the way to go. And in fact, I love teaching this class and teaching combat declarations so much that if you want to learn combat declarations and not take the class, just send me a message and I will send you a video. It's about 26 minutes long, all about combat declarations themselves. So you can shoot me a message on Facebook at Happiness Abound blog. You can shoot me a message at happinessabound.com or on Instagram at happiness_abound. I would be happy to send that your way. With that said, now if you are hearing those voices, you'll need to combat them, but also come back to listening and being still and continuing to access that every day, because practice makes perfect. If you want to have that intuition or that access to a higher power or intuitive voice, you need to practice listening for it, because in the heat of the moment, you may not get it because you don't know what to listen for. So this 3 minutes every morning is practice. Practice in opening up to it, practice in slowing down your mind, practice in listening, and practice so that you can listen in the moments where you need it most. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I hope that this episode has resonated with you. Again, if you want access to a free bit of the class that goes into depth and trains you on combat declarations, send me a message. I'm happy to send you that video. So I'm leaving you with that today. And remember, you are capable of happiness abound.